And God said,
"Let there be shooters."
Oh hey, what's up? Wes here. Thanks a lot for tuning in to another episode of Let There Be Shooters. Now I apologize that it has taken me 7 months to release the second episode of this series. I swear to God it will not take me that long to release the next one, I promise. But here we are with the second episode. Let's take a look and see what I got for us this time. So we're going to flash back to the 80s where there were a ton of influential titles released and... What the hell was that? Whatever. Anyway, we're going to flash back to the 80s and take a look at an influential title within the genre. Star Force. Back in the 80s, when alien life forms coexisted with happy families, metal bands looked like chicks, and fast food craving Americans were beginning their struggle with obesity, demanding to know, "Where's the beef?" Arcade games were also immensely popular, and a company named Tecmo already had their hat in the ring with a fair share of arcade classics that would soon be ported to home consoles to be enjoyed within the comfy confines of our living rooms. Star Force was one of their earliest, hitting the Japanese arcades in 1984 before migrating stateside under the guise Megaforce. In Japan, Star Force was a phenomenal hit, often the subject of countless caravan tournaments for die-hard fanatics. It wasn't long before the game was ported to the Famicom in 1985 by Hudson Soft, as Tecmo was not yet a Nintendo licensee until a year later. In 1987, Tecmo developed and released the game in-house under its original title for the Nintendo Entertainment System. This is the version that we'll cover today. In Star Force, you pilot a spacecraft called the Final Star, which blasts its way through space, sending thousands of enemy ships to their doom. The premise revolves around a tyrannical planet named Gortys, whose purpose is that of mass murder and plunder. The year is 2010, and... 2010? That was 6 years ago. The story's not important. I'll sum it up for you. Basically, you fly around shooting the shit out of anything and everything that moves. There you go. The stages in Star Force scroll up vertically, with waves of enemies swooping in with kamikaze attacks and firing bullets which will annihilate the Final Star with a single shot. The protagonist's craft has only the ability to fire bullets at the opposition. No bombs, no missiles, nothing. As opposed to its peers on the NES, such as Gradius, which has a much more advanced weapon system. Structures along the floating land strips within Star Force can be destroyed, yielding bonuses and the occasional extra life. The only weapon upgrade available increases the speed of both your ship and firepower by 1.5 times. The music changes whenever this item is obtained, which can give the false impression that you are invulnerable. And brother, let me tell you, you are not. The stages seem to be randomly generated, providing different landscapes, enemy troves, and patterns within each playthrough, seemingly creating the stage as you go along. If there is any rhyme or reason as to what causes a certain pattern to form over the other, I am unaware of it. If you know, please share, cause it's really strange. Another oddity in the game has a ship appear at random times, first illuminated by a starlight core, before being encased within a shell. Destroying the core at just the right moment will result in some serious bonus points. Extra lives can be earned with high scores. At the end of each stage, a generic boss must be defeated before the bonus icons you've collected are tallied. While each differs slightly in shape, they are all essentially the same boss, and are pushovers in contrast with the brutality that each stage has to offer. Star Force is freaking hard. The first 3 or 4 stages aren't too bad, but the game just amps up the difficulty the further you get along, with unpredictable enemy patterns and bullets attacking you from every angle. And there's no continues either, so if you plan on making your way through all 24 levels, you better hope some divine intervention is on your side. Now watching this footage here, you may ask, how the hell did he get this far? Did he cheat?
Goddamn right I did!
Star Force is no joke. It is an extremely tough game, one in which the average playing time lasts just a matter of minutes, with bare-bones basic graphics accompanied by a soundtrack which consists of 3 mediocre tunes. But for what it is, it's still fun in small doses. A hardcore masochist may get his rocks off trying to master this one, but in all honesty, why would you want to do that to yourself? But for dedicated collectors, and especially those of you who live for shooters, give it a shot. The game has influenced several franchises, such as the Star Soldier series, and can still be obtained for a pretty low price. You know what? Let's talk some Sega Genesis. The Sega Genesis is known for having a ton of awesome shooters, so it's about damn time that we covered it. So what we're gonna... Dude, there it is again. What is that? God, that's annoying. Ugh. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and take a look at a game that isn't your typical space shooter. It has a more of a mythological atmosphere. Again, what is that? God, it's so annoying. Let's get on with it. Let's check out Wings of Wor. The Sega Genesis is no stranger to shooters, but this one is not your typical firefight through space. Jinogu was released on the Mega Drive in Japan of 1991, and released later that same year as Jinog in Europe, and Wings of Wor for the Genesis here in North America. The game was developed by Messiah, the same developers of the excellent Glay Lancer. In Wings of Wor, you assume the role of War, an angelic warrior summoned to dispose of the evil demons of Ickis and their master, the nefarious Destroyer. You begin this side-scrolling shooter within the depths of Ickis, armed with a default spread shot that can be powered up by collecting red and blue orbs. The red orbs increase the power of your bullets, while the blue ones increase the number and width of your shots. Collecting gems provide different shot patterns. The red gems power up the default spread shot, while the blue ones enable War to fire bullets in a horizontal stream, even firing shots above, below, and slightly behind him. Occasionally, a yellow orb can be obtained, which fires shots in front of and behind War, and is usually dropped only when War's surroundings dictate its necessity. And the entire game plays out in a similar fashion, usually dropping whichever colored orb that will be the most useful for that particular section of the stage. Sub-weapons and defensive items are also available. Scrolls can be collected and harnessed to assist War throughout his plight. Each scroll is emblazoned with letters such as E for energy balls, which fires balls of energy in multiple directions. Obtaining more than one of the same type of scroll in a row increases the power of said item. Using the secondary items, which are collected in the 3 boxes in the HUD from left to right, are paramount in overthrowing the Destroyer and his minions. 2 of the same scroll in a row will increase the firepower and ammo for offensive items, while 3 in a row will provide optimal firepower. The same can be said for defensive scrolls, such as the shield, which can be utilized for a temporary amount of time, increase with each adjoining scroll. Knowing when and where to use these secondary items is essential to survival. Items currently equipped are lost if you should perish, but thankfully you respawn instantly and the scrolls in stock remain with you until used or replaced. The environments within Ickis vastly differ from each other, which I have always appreciated. The second stage takes place in the sky high above the sea, before descending into the waters below, which hosts the second half of the stage. Each level consists of 2 sections, divided by a mid-boss. After defeating the mid-boss, the stage resumes with brand new background music, different from the score played within the first half. In my opinion, music is extremely important in a shooter and sometimes makes or breaks the game. The environments are absolutely enriched by the tunes that beset this dark and mythical world, and the fact that Wings of Wor has 2 completely unique tracks for each stage is just an added bonus to an already aesthetically arousing setting. And to top it off, the soundtrack is excellent, mirroring each stage to near flawless perfection. While the sprites of the protagonists and antagonists alike are somewhat small, the same can't be said for the end bosses, which are gigantic by comparison, usually taking up at least half of the screen, often peppered with bullets. And this was before bullet hells were all the rage. These are some of the most disgusting and vile creatures you'll ever have to face off against in a shooter, such as this floating half-corpse monstrosity, or even this Colossus, who somehow avoided the American censors with his enormous... yeah. Hey look, he's Jewish. Wings of Wor is a challenging game. While the first 4 stages are manageable, the 5th stage turns it up a notch, or more like 10, sending you into a never-ending pulsating amorphous backdrop riddled with baddies, bullets, and bullshit. Damn, this level is a bitch, but it's not cheap, oh no. You just have to keep one eye on war and the other on everything else. The trick is to make it to this point without losing too many lives. Good luck. But with practice, it can be accomplished. This game is fantastic, and I can't recommend it enough. While the 6 stages that Wings of Wor provides are indeed challenging and the end seemingly beyond reach, practice and persistence makes the final goal attainable. The price of this one has been climbing steadily, and unfortunately is not available on the Virtual Console. The Japanese version is much more affordable though, so you may want to go that route. But if you're a hardcore shooter fan, you owe it to yourself to enjoy Wings of Wor. You definitely don't want to miss out on this one. This game freaking rocks. Now, I love the mythological atmosphere that's in Wings of Wor, and you can just see by the cover art. Dude, there it is again! What is that? It's driving me up the wall. Ugh. Anyway, the American cover is different than the European and Japanese covers. Now, the cover art on the American version was actually done by a well-known fantasy painter named Boris Vallejo, who has also painted covers for other video games and even the National Lampoon's Vacation movie poster. I mean, just look. Alright, seriously, again? What is going on here? What is that? Oh my god, that is driving me nuts. I can't even focus. I can't concentrate. I'm done. I'm out of here. Forget this. To hell with this. I don't give a shit. Fuck it. In 1984, Capcom brought us the classic World War II shooter 1942 to arcades across the globe. The game spawned several sequels and ports, such as the excellent 1943 on the NES. In 2008, the series resurfaced for the PS3 and Xbox 360 in the form of a digital game. 1942 Joint Strike is a continuation of the series, and while the game is at times referred to as a remake of 1942, it's actually an original game. Joint Strike was developed by Backbone Entertainment, the same company that brought us Commando 3: Wolf of the Battlefield. Joint Strike retains elements from the previous entries in this series, such as utilizing an energy meter, which allows your plane to take multiple hits of damage before losing a life. The biggest draw of the game is by far the multiplayer aspect, where you and a buddy can take to the skies over the Pacific to bring down a fleet of baddies. Planes, tanks, and ships are all your targets in this vertical scrolling shooter, with each stage concluding against an enormous boss, armed to the teeth. You have 3 planes to choose from, each with their own attributes and deficiencies. 3 different weapons can also be obtained throughout the game. Your standard shot, a spread shot, and a laser, which passes through anything it strikes, but is seemingly the weakest of the 3. On top of that, a charge shot reminiscent of 1943 is tossed into the mix, requiring you to dodge enemy fire while loading your shot. This changes things up a bit from your typical shooter and also means that there's no rapid fire either. Personally, I'm not a big fan of shooters that integrates a charge shot into the mix, relying heavily on it by making standard shots abysmally weak. The game is most enjoyable in 2-player co-op mode, where special attacks known as the Joint Strike can be used against your foes. Each player can choose one of 3 Joint Strike attacks to be used throughout the game. Unfortunately, these attacks are extremely lame, with the best of the 3 being the lightning attack, which is still pretty underwhelming. And speaking of underwhelming, the graphics and environments are pretty blah, with many of the settings within looking drab and uninspired to the point where it can be difficult to discern one stage from another. And the music?
Boring.
Just like Commando 3, the music is so soft and quiet that it's barely audible over all of the gunfire. The loop-de-loop is back, which can easily save your ass when in a pinch by avoiding all enemies and setting off a bomb, removing all projectiles from the screen. And in single-player mode, a missile attack replaces the joint strike, which is actually more useful than the maneuver the frickin' game is named for. 1942 Joint Strike is definitely a challenging game. With no continues, navigating your plane through the skies of 5 harrowing stages is a hell of a task, even with a friend, which is the ideal way to plow through this one. The bosses take a tremendous amount of damage, and there are also some bullet hell elements in various parts of the game. But unlike the previous entries in the series, Joint Strike is way too short, and just like the rest of the game, is extremely underwhelming, leaving you wanting more. The game is available digitally for both the PS3 and Xbox 360, but if you have to choose one over the other, go with the Xbox version as it has 12 achievements to attain versus the PlayStation's whopping 0. Thanks a lot, Sony, you bastards. But in all honesty, with a $9.99 price tag, I just can't recommend it to anyone for that cost except maybe die-hard 1942 fans. Luckily though, this game is on sale often, so if you see it for $5 or less, pick it up. I can recommend it for that price. Otherwise, take assurance in knowing that you can go to your grave with no regrets if you avoid this one. I think that annoying noise has finally stopped. Yeah, I don't hear it anymore. Alright, I think we're good. Okay, so anyway, those are 3 pretty solid shooters, but 1942 Joint Strike and Star Force are the mediocre ones of the 3, while I definitely have to recommend Wings of Wor. That shooter is just fantastic. It is awesome. It's awesome. You have got to check that one out. Trust me. So, anyway, thanks for tuning into this episode. What shooters would you like to see me cover? Some more obscure stuff, some better known stuff. I don't know, let me know in the comments below. But I would... Alright, seriously, are you freaking kidding me? It just won't stop. Oh my god, it's driving me up the wall. What is going on here? I can't take it anymore.